Hi everyone. Today I'll be talking about Travan Run, which is a fundraising charity run that the organization called Save a Rupee Spread a Smile, which I had co-founded with a couple of amazing youngsters, had done a few years back um, to raise funds for cancer and renal patients from the regional uh, cancer center in Trivandrum, which is a state government run institution. And this is the story of how a couple of volunteers, not a couple, but over a period of 6 years, almost 500 plus volunteers had came together to mobilize funds for patients, especially who come from other states, because in Kerala, uh, RCC provides subsidy for patients from Kerala, while from other states like Tamil Nadu or Andhra, patients had to pay, and sometimes it was not easy for them to pay. So, to start with, I want to narrate a bit about what Save a Rupee Spread a Smile is. In the early career of mine at the age of 19, I was in Trivandrum doing my graduation in psychology, and then I was looking for circles of people to work with, collaborate. And Trivandrum was this very vibrant space, like it's the capital of the state of Kerala, and had a lot of things to do. And I've done the Art of Living course, which is essentially a meditation course, which was co-developed by by the Art of Living Foundation, and they had this very unique program called the Yes Plus Youth Empowerment Seminar. It's meditation for the youth, but it's also leads to social action. So. Trivandrum had an Art of Living center where the center used to host these Yes Plus seminars, and I had done one of these. And over a course of around 20 or 30 courses, there were like a spool of 200 to 300 youngsters who used to come together for various discussions, activities, fun. And it was really fun because all of them were mostly young college students from various colleges across Trivandrum, because Trivandrum has a lot of colleges. And at this one point, we sort of had a discussion, and where we discussed, can we start an organization in Trivandrum that could, bring together youth in the district to really work on social action and developmental issues that the state faces. And that's how we came up with the organization called Save a Rupee Spread a Smile. The idea was that if all of us, all the youngsters who were there, put in a rupee every day, which is around nearly 30 rupees a day, and in the end of the month, can we utilize that for any social costs in the city? And that's how this NGO was formed. It was not registered then. At that point, there were like around 15 people of us who started off this, and then the immediate start was to have small activities every month, mostly in care home for children and care home for elderly, where we used to go spend time with them. With the amount that we pooled, would buy essential items if they require, especially because the care homes are not very well funded in India, and there are a lot of them, especially for children and also elderly. So and we used to spend time there, and essentially uh, this action then started to bring in more and more volunteers, and this group slowly started to evolve into a bigger group. There were majority of them were from the Yes Plus course, and later then people joined from across various other colleges, etc. too. um, and over a period of 1 year or so, I was behind it as the founding secretary, and then we used to do a lot of events every end of the every month to bring in volunteers, and it was quite a fun journey, because not only it was a space for youth to showcase or use their time in a very good manner, but it was also a lot about learning about empathy, discussing the problems that the city faces, learning more about each other, making friends, making relationships. So it was quite a beautiful space that we built. um, and almost for an year and a half and two, we just focused on these once in a month events that used to happen, and sometimes in a month we had more than two or three events. And I mean, positively, what also happened is that during birthdays, people would completely sponsor a meal in one of these care homes. So we would bring in biryani or something really fancier that they don't get to have every day. Spend some time, especially with the elderly. The thing is that no one really goes there and spend time with them. So it was very important that they get that peace where, and vibrancy when a couple of youngsters go there, spend time with them, sing songs, dance with them, and it also was a lot of learning for us because I mean, I'm sure that a lot of volunteers who had been there at that point of time had learned the values of empathy, the need for giving back to the society, etc. And and slowly, at one point we had a lot of seniors join us as from Art of Living Foundation, and also to mentor us and guide us, and at around 1.5 years through the project. One of the demands that we got from the care home for the children was to provide them with tuition classes on maths, physics, English, etc. And I mean, when we looked into it, there were a lot of students who were ready to provide that, and they had the knowledge. For example, those who are doing engineering certainly knows well about maths, physics, chemistry, etc. And we were like, why not then just use that? So we started to do education programs in these care home for children every weekend. We would allocate volunteers who would go there, spend time with them, help them with maths lessons, physics lessons, chemistry, science, English, history, and more. And slowly this really grew big. More volunteers came to join, and we were all learning how to create the system. This was a completely voluntary run organization because there was no staff essentially. And mm, we would I mean, the core team would put in some time to, like, learn, and and I mean, on one end, I and along with a couple of core members, we used to work on the logo part. We wanted to build this as an organization, as a system in place. And when we started the education program, one thing that we noticed is that even though we would go and spend time with them in terms of tuition, we didn't know exactly how to communicate to children or young learners, because none of the volunteers had this knowledge on how to really communicate. Like, we would just go and talk and teach, and but the right way of communication was missing. And that's when Deepa came into the picture. Deepa Anantapanaban, who's been then the president for a very long time with Success, and is now my co-founder at Sustera Foundation. Also, Deepa came in, and she is a teacher, experienced teacher, professional, who came in and started to coach our volunteers to tell them how to teach, how to narrate, how to communicate with children, and this really changed the game. For almost 2.5, 3 years from then on, we worked closely with around five care homes for children, reaching over, I am not sure, but around 220 plus children from these care homes on educational lessons. I mean, I really would love to have known where they are all doing and what they're doing now. But especially, there are certain faces that wouldn't really go from your heart or face, because such sweet faces, and that they were orphaned at an early age, or their parents couldn't take care of them, and then they were in these centers. And their fun time was also, I mean, they would really anticipate us coming there. Like, they would really wait for the Chetans and Chechi, or as they call, elderly brother or sister, to come there during these weekends. And many of us knew their names very well. They knew us, and it was such a emotional time for all of us also, like, to be able to contribute and help them out. So this went for a while, and I'm sure a lot of volunteers, I personally know a lot of them, have their life transformed by this experience. And I doubt if such experiences are there now. I don't know really. I mean, at that point, I also remember how Make a Difference was quite active too in this way. I'm not sure about them now, but they were doing some amazing job the same way we did too. They were quite big at the time, and they were spanning across the country. And now, while this was all happening, while there was a lot of work happening on small scale, in a in an organized manner, these experiences were happening. One thing that we noticed, that we used to get a lot of requests from places like the regional cancer center, etc., for supporting financially for chemotherapy and so on and so forth, for families who didn't have the means to pay. And we had this discussion where myself, I remember this particular discussion where myself, Deepa, Ashwin, Shruti, I think Gokul, Anandu, all of us were there. And then we would really I mean, we were just thinking, how can we help them out? Like, essentially, we didn't know about CSR, we didn't know about all these NGO thingy stuff then. And we were like, how can we raise funds for them? By then, we were registered as a charitable society, which had a committee of around 13 members, and mostly the youngsters plus some of the seniors as well. And I was secretary then. And we had this thought, can we do like a fundraising event? And so some suggested, can we do a cricket match? Because Deepa's husband is a cricketer, and then we had immediate thing that we could do was a cricket match to do raise funds. But we were not sure how that would raise funds. Is it the ticket that is going to raise funds, or what is going to? And essentially, what we are thinking is, can we at least raise 1 lakh rupees doing an event? Um, so that it covers 10 chemotherapies. A chemotherapy then was around 10,000 rupees, or around $140, nearly $140, I guess. Um, so after some discussion, we came to the conclusion that rather than having um, a cricket match or so, what if we could do a marathon? Now, at this point, I'm just checking my camera. Yeah, charge. Yeah. So yeah, at this point, mm, uh, none of us have had run a marathon ever in life. Um, None of us were runners, but we just thought, globally there is a lot of marathon that happens to raise funds for various causes, and why not we raise funds through doing a marathon? And so this sound like an interesting idea. So as a small group, we then quickly thought of, what if we just bring in um, 100 people together, and they register for say 500 rupees, and that becomes around 50k, 50,000 rupees. And we also pull in some sponsorship that would help us raise that 1 lakh limit, and we named it Trivandrum. Trivandrum, Trivandrum. So we just changed the rum with run. And at that point, we also checked if there was any marathons that happened in Trivandrum. And apparently, for at least last then 5 6 years, there was no marathon happening. But originally, there was a Trivandrum marathon which was famous. But at that point, there was nothing happening. And we sort of were clueless a bit, but thanks to Google, then we did some research, learned about how Boston Marathon is run, how London Marathon is run, etc. We created a quick checklist. Someone of friend, Gokul's friend, I guess, agreed to do a logo, so we quickly send it out to them, and they created a brilliant logo like of Run. That was the start, and I started to look into research into things on how to run a marathon. I mean, how to organize a marathon. And essentially, we had to had a form, we had to have bibs for people, we had to have timing. There were a lot of these complicated stuff also, like having sensors, to know the exact kilometers, etc. But those were all high end stuff, going to be expensive. So we wanted to keep it simple. We wanted to do it small. But here is also the twist that we were not essentially doing a marathon, because a marathon essentially would be a full stretch of 42 kilometers. But we were only planning to do a 10K or a 5K, which is not a marathon. So it was a run, a charity run. I mean, at that point, we were clueless about all these. So we just call it a marathon. And so created a form, learned about designing a bib, designed it on Photoshop. We only had to have 100, so we could just replicate it in Photoshop, is what we thought. And we wanted the route, so we wanted some permissions. We got in volunteers. We called in for volunteers who were already there, and more volunteers from outside who wanted to join. Quickly there was a lot of sound around it, and what we did, the first thing that we did was to set up a small kiosk in a shop called Style Plus, where we had a kiosk where we would have registration forms ready, and then people would come while they're exiting. We would ask them if they would like to register for a marathon or a run. Sorry, and it's a 10K or 5K. It's a fundraising for Regional Cancer Center. I mean, we were in doing it in collaboration with the Regional Cancer Center. And around 25 days to go, and we started the registration. And On one end, the registration was happening, and we are all volunteering. So essentially, we are all doing something else. So I was studying, others were working, so there are the other people also studying there. So essentially, it was not easy for us to put in full time, but it's evenings between 6 and 9 that we would stand there and get registrations. So thanks to Dilish, Deepa's friend, who is run Style Plus, and he agreed us to do this, because not every shop owner would let us do this. And we started to get registrations, a few. Within 10 days we only had like 15 registrations, and uh, not much. 15 is very low, but slowly things started to pick up, because people wanted to run, or they wanted to donate to charity, and there were more volunteers. So slowly we reached, I think, 25, 30, 40 registrations then. And we started to extend our registration with more volunteers. We got it into Technopark. The Technopark allowed us to put up a kiosk in their few buildings. Technopark is essentially the IT hub in Trivandrum, so they let us do it there. And we sort of brought in more volunteers, and we had to cover the travel and all. So those were budgeting aspects happening on the side. Um, so essentially 15 days to go. This one time, when we were standing in Style Plus, this one lady came up to us and asked if what is this and all of that. And out of curiosity, she asked what's happening, and it was the head of I think, the state head or so of Qatar Airways. And she came to us and like asked what's happening and all, and she was curious, and she said, can you come up with a proposal for funding, because we were anyway looking for funding. So she said, come to my office tomorrow. So myself and Deepa, we go there. I mean, when we were creating the proposal, it was all new for me. The first time in life I'm creating a proposal for a funding aspect, right? So it's just a two-pager. I mean, now with ChatGPT and all, I'm sure could have made a amazing one. But at that point of time, if you look back, these were with basic knowledge and basic understanding. You create a very emotional pitch, with very basic knowledge, but still had a lot of power. And we created one. Now I said, Deepa, I call it Chechi. Chechi, let's do just for 2 lakhs. I think if they give 1 lakh, then it covers most of what we wanted. Deepa said, let's ask for 5 lakhs, because then we can also then scale the intention of, or the extent of the run that we're doing. So we put in 5 lakhs. I mean, I was like, what? 5 lakhs is huge amount. How do we even manage that? Chichi is like, let's try and do it. Deepa is like, let's try and do it, and there go. We go with the proposal, and they look into it, and they come back the next day as an email saying that, we can support the marathon, the run. and provide a sponsorship of up to 3 lakhs with certain conditions in place, that you'll have to have at least 1,000 people coming for the run, which is like never possible, like impossible, right? Like we were thinking 100 people, we only have 25 registrations or 40 registrations by now. We need to bring 1,000 people in what, 15 days? It's not possible at all. But it was positive thing that someone wanted to believe in us. Someone wanted to like sponsor us, and that to Qatar Airways. At that point, I don't remember if they were sponsoring the biggest, best football club in the world, uh, and um, uh, and we were like going to be sponsored by them. The Travan Run is going to be sponsored by them. It's going to be a big thing. So we came together, we discussed and said, okay, it's not possible that we get 1,000 people, and even though the sponsorship is there. But Deepa said, let's give it a try. Like worst case, what would happen? We might have to return the money, but let's give it a try. And that's how. Oh, my battery is running short. I'll just off the Wi-Fi. Okay, so that's how we decided we'll do the Trivand run and take the sponsorship. And now the run has changed into Qatar Airways Trivand run. It was just Trivand, now it's Qatar Airways Trivand run. Things change quickly, like crazy quickly. Things change. Like I can't even imagine the next 15 days what happened. Thankfully, I was not in college then. I was taking a break here, and things change crazy quickly. Um, Within 3 or 4 days, we had more volunteers setting up kiosks across the city because we had to reach 1,000 people somehow, at least 500, so that we can convince them somehow that still it is a good thing, because they only look from return of investment point, right? Like, so we had to like help them out too, because eventually she will be responsible for the investment made, sponsorship made. um, we up our registration game. We also added a event called the corporate relay. Essentially, a company can send a team of 5 to run a relay of 10 kilometers, 2 kilometers each, and we got, that was 10,000 rupees per relay, and a donation. We had like 10 teams. All of this was research. Okay, again, I would research into how things happen elsewhere and then translating it here to get more participants, more people running. You won't believe, then what happened. We got sponsorship from other participants, who people, companies who came to us and said that, okay, I will sponsor food. Ambrosio came and said, okay, I'll give you sandwiches for 1,000 participants. The SK hospital said that they will send ambulances, because we wanted ambulances and healthcare professionals on the road for 10K. And they said they'll send their health professionals a tent and also 3 ambulances. Someone sponsored water, some for throughout the run race course. I mean, at that point, there was no other option other than to keep plastic bottles, so it was all plastic bottles. I do regret of doing all of that, but yeah. We Someone went and got the necessary lighting sponsored. You won't believe, throughout the few runs, people like Job Korean and all agreed to do a end of the run event too. We got one of the ministers to come and inaugurate. Suresh Gopi said he will be the brand ambassador. At that point, he's now an MP, and then he was just an actor, but he was a famous actor. And things changed drastically then. Quickly, our registration went to around 800. 4 days to go, and we were all running crazy. Too many things running on the head of people. But um, in the next 4 days, games changed really fast. People started to know about the Travan Run via word of mouth, and now everyone wanted to join. You won't believe, on the day of the run, in the morning, even we had registrations going. Before the day of the run, we had around 1,600 people register. It was a huge database mystery that how we managed with the bibs and all of that. It's really a mystery. We had around 2,000 people register in the end. In the morning, I mean, the previous night we didn't sleep. We were all preparing the road because we had to take permissions. We had to get the lights on at 4 o'clock in the morning. In the stretch that we are running, we had to get waste bins in all of that place. So we had around 200 plus volunteers doing all of this, and all being coordinated by, I don't know, some magical power. I have no idea how we did it, but we had 2,000 people. We had the Club of Pulsarians, a group of people who had pulsar bikes, who came in the morning with all their suits, biking suits ready, and then their bikes to help us volunteer throughout the race course, because we had to have these vehicles that go along with the runners, and various runs, because we had a 2K run, we had a 10K run. 2K was family, 10K was for general. We had a relay also, so we had these volunteers. These three ambulances came with all lights up at early morning at 4:30, ready for it. Um, People have started to crowd up. It's crazy out there, and eventually the run actually happens. We raised, if I'm not wrong, around 9 lakh rupees. Mm, if I, again, I'm around 7,000 to $8,000, um, for that one run, which we thought of only having 100 people run. There's so many background stories around it, like so many things that happen in the background. Like, personally, it was a transformational journey for us to have to know to manage huge number of volunteers without a hiccup, having the police come on board, having military personnel come on board. We had the Lakshmi Bai Sports Academy of the state come and help us with the marking of the winners. Um, we had the prize money. We had to provide bibs to all these people, learn how to generate these many bibs, around 2,000 bibs in one go. uh, um, there are these amazing people who was behind all of this. We had to have these videos made to promote. I mean, I personally learned a lot in just this one single process. And you know what, over the next 5 years we did Trivandrum and almost raised around 60 lakh 6 million rupees, 6 to 7 million rupees, through these 5 to 6 4 to 5 runs actually. In the last two runs, I was not completely part of, because I was also studying and doing something else. But things went so smooth. Um, you won't believe. I mean, even now, I haven't ever ran a marathon, but I've organized, I would proudly say, five of them, at least recent for organizing five of them. And um, and not a single penny of rupee was used for any of like salary activities. It was completely voluntary run organization. And to manage something of the scale, I don't know if it be possible for me now, but at that point it just happened. Like how the alchemist says, when you want something to happen, things would just happen. You just have to send it out to the universe, and right people coming together was quite important. Right organizations coming together, because getting permissions and all are not easy. The DGP, the of police, agreeing, and the minister coming, all of that helped a lot. Especially a big thanks to Technopark, because around, you know that particular one year, starting of the year, 600 people just came from Technopark. And in the subsequent years, you won't believe, in one of the runs there were 600 people just from TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, and they are also the funder of London Marathon, um, this year, which is 2025, and a lot of other years too. So, having this diverse set of volunteers come join for a cause, learn a lot of things together, do a lot of things together, to emotionally be in place without getting worn off, um, to be able to have that strength to contribute towards a better planet, a better future, to developmental cause, to run a charity run, to raise funds. It was not easy. I mean, when I said, it might have sounded a bit easy, but there are also times when we had to see really bad instances of having some of our volunteers getting beaten up by people public on the ground because we were blocking the roads, which was, even though after getting a permit, it certainly is a nuisance because not every, like in London or New York, if we do a marathon, people know it's a marathon, it's announced way in back. In Kerala it's not the case. Blocking a road suddenly, even though if it's announced, it's not easy for the public to take. So we had to have very bad instances. We had seen celebrities come late and things get affected, but thanks to, yeah, like a lot of people though, we had Surat Santosh come for one of our events, Job Kurian come one of our events. It was quite big. We had a lot of volunteers who came to perform at the end of the events run. I don't know. There is endless number of people to thank for what had happened, but all these learnings have really helped me understand that youth has a lot of potential and power to be able to contribute towards social causes. You just have to create platforms for them to utilize it. And this process is also important because in this process they will turn into a better human being, better person. You learn a lot of logistics, organizational management of programs, projects, without even doing a master's on any of these. So, and frankly speaking, a lot of friendships were bloomed out of it. A lot of people, I still cherish having amazing friends from these communes and groups that we have, and and still emotionally to be attached to some of them is great. And some of my closest friends are still those I found from the Art of Living Foundation and the marathon that we the run that we organized. And um yeah yeah, by the by, there is also a lot of co-benefits. For example, a lot of people have started to run because of Trovan Run, and now there are even more marathons than ever. I mean, in Trivandrum, at least 3 to 4 marathons that happen, along with charity runs too. So we essentially started the culture of running in Trivandrum back. I personally know of a person who was overweight and started. It was through and run through which they started to run and found a love for running, and now is one of the biggest health influencers out there. I mean, I have not been able to run a lot yet, but still, when I look back in life, this is one of the instances that has had an amazing impact on me, a lot of other people, and I'm sure it really had an impact on people who utilize that funds for their treatment too, because cancer is not easy. Cancer is something that can really mess all of your lifestyle, your life, your thoughts, your choices. It is a slow killer. So to get treatment, get support for that, um, especially for families who can't financially, is a big thing. So I truly hope that a lot of people were supported, who got supported, is doing better now. And he also worked on the renal, with patients who had renal issues, along with the KNOS, Kerala. I forgot the full form. It's again a state government run organization that works with people who had kidney issues. So thank you for listening, and I mean, I hope I can narrate such stories more in the future, and also give more insight